Hey guys, welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaylin. I'm a dual UK and American citizen, and today I'm comparing how the Americans and the Brits celebrate Easter. Okay, so today this video is being posted on Easter. Happy Easter, everybody. And I thought it'd be very interesting to do a comparison video relating to Easter because there are actually a lot more differences in how the countries celebrate Easter than you might expect. This video is not sponsored by them, but can we all appreciate my new hat from the Natural History Museum with the lovely whale? The Natural History Museum in London is amazing if you have a chance to go. Okay, so let's jump right into the differences. Number one, and most importantly, here in the UK, the Easter holiday or bank holiday is typically 4 days. And I'm not talking about the school holidays, but the adult holidays. So you take Good Friday, Easter weekend, and typically Easter Monday in the UK. So most people, not everybody, because some people do have to continue working in things that are open, but a lot of people do end up having a 4-day weekend from the Friday to the Monday. In the US, it is Good Friday plus Easter weekend, but they do not take Easter Monday. Things pretty much go back to normal on the Monday, despite the US actually celebrating Easter in a more intense way. Now, before we get on to the second thing, and just in addition to this, typically in the UK, especially in England, I won't speak for all the other countries, but definitely in England, the children in school have kind of the Easter holidays or half term, which is basically a break from school, and that is 2 weeks long around Easter. This is not a thing in the US typically. The kids will get the Good Friday off usually, but there is an entirely different system. They will have 1 week of what we call a spring break, but it doesn't always correlate with Easter. It depends on the state, it depends on where the holidays fall, but this kind of like Easter half-term break is not a thing in the US. Okay, so the next thing to keep in mind is that the celebration of Easter in the US versus the UK does differ a lot in what is actually celebrated. We've talked about this before, but the US is a much more religious country than the UK, despite the fact that there are official religions in the UK, like England's official religion is the Church of England. Typically, there will be more days off here for like religious holidays, but they don't celebrate the religious aspect of it as much as they do in the US. So to clarify what I mean by this, Easter weekend in the US, the vast majority of people, not everybody, but a good portion of people, high percentages, it's up there, are going to make sure that they go to church on Easter Sunday. Because the point of Easter is that Jesus in the Christian faith has risen from the dead. So you will hear lots of things like he is risen, and it really embraces for a lot of families that the actual religious meaning of Easter. I would say in the UK, people can kind of take it or leave it. Obviously, there are church communities here and there are religious people in the UK, but if you go around your average neighborhood, knocking on doors and say, who's going to church this Easter Sunday? I would say the vast majority of people would not be. Instead, they're taking the Easter eggs and the Easter hunts and the meal with the family as the meaning of Easter. Again, Americans do this as well, but most American families and people who do celebrate Easter in the US are pretty focused on the actual religious meaning. Now let's talk about other ways that they celebrate in both countries. So in the UK, the most common type of candy to swap on Easter is going to be a giant chocolate Easter egg that looks like this. It could be anything from a Cadbury's egg to an Oreo, Maltesers, like I'm sure Lindt do it. Basically, a giant egg as big as your head that is made of some type of chocolate. It could have candy inside. I think I had a Freddo Easter egg once where you opened it and there were Freddos inside. And this is what you would swap, you would get your nieces and nephews and your kids, you might get it for your significant other. These are the things, this is the currency. The Easter currency here is this giant chocolate egg. This is not the case in the US, funnily enough. We do like chocolate and we do like Easter eggs, but this concept of like a giant chocolate Easter egg is not so much what we go for. Instead, we go for still chocolates, but we would call them like Easter chocolates, and they would be smaller. Maybe they're shaped like bunnies, maybe they're shaped like tiny Easter egg in packages, and we really like something called PEEPS. PEEPS are basically pure sugar in neon colors in the shape of a little chick. And it is a Easter classic. When you eat it, it is like a marshmallow covered in sugar. I love them. They are delicious to me. But these, again, these smaller types of chocolates and chocolate bars and PEEPS are more of what we would swap at Easter time. Now let's talk about Easter eggs, because both countries talk about and hunt for Easter eggs. It is very, 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 very common in the US to have an Easter egg hunt, to do it for your kids, to go to big ones, and I have seen Easter egg hunts advertised here in the UK. So both countries share this idea of having the kids hunt for Easter eggs. But there are a couple differences. So the eggs that are hunted for typically are going to be plastic eggs because they're going to be sitting in the grass. Maybe they'll get rained on. But sometimes Americans will also dye Easter eggs. So in the UK, it's very common these days to have brown eggs as just the standard ones you can buy in the grocery store. In the US, we mostly have white eggs. So white eggs you can easily dye. Brown eggs, not so much. This is my hypothesis on why this hasn't caught on in the UK, but it is super common in the US to dye Easter eggs, and you basically get a pack that looks like this from a grocery store or from Target, and essentially it's food safe coloring, and you have all of your different cups with all of the different dyes, which is basically the dye like mixed with, I think, vinegar typically. And you take your little Easter egg dipper thingy, you put the egg, you leave it in the dye, and then it comes out as a dyed Easter egg. Also, something really fun to do is if you take a wax crayon that's often included in these packs, you write something on the egg that you can't see yet, you dunk it in the dye dip, and then when you pull it out, it hasn't actually dyed the spaces that you use the wax crayon on. So you can do all different types of designs that way. So sometimes Americans will hide these eggs as well for the kids to find, but because they are actual eggs that people want to eat, sometimes you would just you would dye eggs for fun and have them as boiled eggs or deviled eggs later, and the kids would still search for the plastic ones. Like I said, I've never heard of anybody dyeing Easter eggs in the UK. Maybe you have, comment below if you're British and you've done this before, but the eggs here are mostly brown, so it wouldn't work as well to dye these kinds of eggs. Now the next thing on my list has to do with Easter baskets. So the Easter bunny is, as far as I can tell, he comes to both countries. I don't think that the UK emphasizes the Easter bunny quite as much as the Americans do, but it is the tradition, I think, for most people that the Easter bunny is the one who probably hid the eggs in the first place. But in the US, Easter baskets are pretty much all over at Easter. It's very uncommon if you're celebrating Easter and you have kids to not do an Easter basket. I have heard of possibly Easter baskets in the UK, so I'm not saying that they don't do them whatsoever. And again, if you're British and you do a tradition of exchanging Easter baskets, comment below and let me know. But my general feeling is that in the US, it is basically a foregone conclusion that you will do Easter baskets at Easter, whereas in the UK, I think some families don't do it. So an Easter basket is what the Easter bunny has brought you in addition to hiding the eggs for you. And an Easter basket would be how Americans get their loot of candy. That's where you put the Easter chocolates, that's where you put the PEEPS, little puzzles, little trinkets. It's a really kind of like a gift basket for the kids, or you could do it for anybody at Easter time. And my hypothesis on this one is that the British giant chocolate egg is, for many people, the version of the Easter basket. You come to the family function with these giant Easter eggs, and these function in kind of the same way as our Easter basket, which is combining together a lot of little chocolates and toys as opposed to one big thing. Now that brings me to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed learning a couple differences about Easter in the UK versus the US. If you've enjoyed this video or my other ones, please make sure you subscribe. We're almost to 14,000 subscribers, which would be an Easter miracle. I don't think I'm getting an Easter basket this year, or really ever since I've moved to the UK, but I will be eating some chocolate Easter eggs today. So I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your Easter weekend with family and friends, and I'll see you next time.